Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Adaptive's 2015.1 release, and what does this mean for you? I'm going to go ahead and introduce today's featured speaker, Amy Morgan. Amy is a certified adaptive implementer and a senior manager on Armanino's Adaptive Insights team. She leads projects from pre-sales through implementation and through support, and her experience with Fortune 100 FP&A companies, coupled with 8 years of implementation and training, make Amy one of the foremost adaptive experts. Amy, it's great to have you with us here today. And with that, I'm actually going to go ahead and turn the presentation over to you to get started on our content.
Thank you so much, Megan. During today's webinar, we're going to go over Adaptive's 2015.1 release. In here, we'll look at the navigation shortcuts Adaptive has introduced, look at how they've simplified dimensionalized actuals using kubegl accounts. We'll discover their more configurable scorecard and also see how you can align exchange rates with the integrated connector if you have the NetSuite ERP. And finally, we'll preview the July mini release. Oops, sorry, I think we both advanced the slide there. Brian, do you mind just sending it one back, please? Thank you. Okay, so Adaptive has introduced some navigation shortcuts in the Sheets area. If you go to the bottom right of the Sheets, you'll see an icon that looks like a keyboard, and you'll see this menu come up. Most of the shortcuts are pretty intuitive for the editing purposes, where you can, up arrow, down arrow, hit delete, hit backspace to remove things. So I didn't highlight those. I did start with the sheet navigation and highlighted in purple and yellow the ones that I thought were helpful. They're introducing probably 25 new sheet navigation tools, and to me 25 is a lot of new things to learn. So I went ahead and just highlighted what I thought would be the most helpful. With being able to navigate around the sheet, you can jump around a lot easier. Very helpful if you have a large organization or you're looking at a large time range. And the key to remember in sheet navigation is to hold down the control key. So control and arrows will move you, basically paginate you. Control home, control end will allow you to go to the very first and very last cells of the sheet. Also helpful are tab. A lot of times when you're entering a number, you want to be able to move to the right rather than moving down. So if you enter a number and then hit tab, that'll move you to the right. Shift tab goes to the left. And then home and end bring you to the first cell in the row, last cell in the row. Let's move on to the next slide. For extending selections in sheets, we're able to use the Shift key to help us enlarge that selection. So if you have a cell highlighted and we also want to select the cell above it, we just hit Shift and then navigate up, and now our selection has expanded by that cell. So if we're holding the Shift key down, kind of keeping that in mind, we can hit Shift Home and go automatically to that first column of the row, or Shift End to go to the end. And then the next one I highlighted, Shift Control Home, extends that selection to the very first cell of the sheet. Shift Control End goes to the very last cell of the sheet. This is helpful. A lot of times we might have data in an entire sheet that we want to copy over, maybe into another level of the organization. And using these shortcuts, it's much quicker now. You can navigate up to the very first cell of the sheet and then use the Shift Control N to select all the way to the last cell of the sheet, and then Control C, go over to the new sheet, Control V, and bring all your data over. This is much quicker than trying to click on the mouse button and then scrolling over to the right, scrolling down, and waiting for everything to get selected. So for those of you with large sheets needing to navigate around or copy and paste data, these are some nice wins for you. Moving on. So Adaptive has also introduced a new concept called kubegl accounts. And what kubegl accounts allow you to do is say, in my GL, there's certain data that I want to have dimensionalized. So rather than entering it on the standard sheet, I want to go ahead and enter it on the cube sheet. In order to use kubegl accounts, we need to do two things. The first is we need to set the GL account so that the account type is, the data entry type is cube. And the second thing we need to do is when building our cube, when we're adding the account, we need to say add an account that is from those kubegl accounts. In looking at this and looking at how this might be practical for you, we think this offers some pros. You no longer need to use formulas or linked accounts to bring data from a cube into the GL. The big win, the reason this is news, is it also has drillable transactions. So you can populate data in the cube and you can populate transactions, and those transactions will now be drillable. The cons we see are that this is still just populating data in the GL account, and so if you want actuals to be dimensionalized, you want your forecast and budget to be dimensionalized, but let's say you're forecasting sales, the sales would be forecasted as a number. We're not able to bring over a formula like in a cube sheet, units times price. Also, this restricts your entry to only be on the cube sheet, so you can't do any kind of data entry or budgeting on a standard sheet. If this looks like a fit for you, what we'd recommend is going ahead and testing this with custom accounts and seeing if you like the behavior before actually updating your model to have GL accounts work like this. One other note is this is the first of many steps that Adaptive is taking to really provide a true multidimensional GL. So look for more enhancements to be coming in this area. Let's move on. The next thing Adaptive has is a configurable scorecard. So the first example is if you went into Adaptive and you created a scorecard, what it would do is it would have the scorecard really predefined as to what fields are in place. It allows you to define the accounts, but then the rest of those columns are already set for you. It has to be budget or actual budget, variance, the zone, the trend, the microchart, and then the year actual budget. And those were predefined for you, which was helpful if that's what you wanted to look at. But if you wanted to reconfigure, you were kind of stuck. Now they have a configurable scorecard. And with this configurable scorecard, we can not only define the accounts, but we can have up to 3 sections. So you see the sections here are month, quarter to date, and I cut it off, but the last one was for the year. And you can also have up to 7 columns in each of those sections. So you can have, in this case, any combination of versions, time periods, etc., microcharts, graphs. So if you're needing to have a scorecard, this is just a new feature, fairly quick to put together, and allows you to, again, define your 3 sections and define your 7 columns in each section. Also allows for configurable variances, so you can take a variance to values, percents, between any time and any version. So again, if you're a Discovery user, something you'll find helpful. Let's keep going. The next update Adaptive has is if you have a NetSuite ERP and are using the integrated connector, they've now exposed exchange rates in the connector. What that means in plain English is you are now able to configure your connector to bring those exchange rates from NetSuite over into Adaptive. To do that, you just go into Admin and review your account mappings, and then map that NetSuite exchange rate account to the Adaptive exchange rate account. If it seems like it's taking you a while to find those, it's because exchange rates are the last account group. Just scroll to the bottom. Okay. So, we already popped in the answer here. But one of the things we were wondering was, as we go through the different areas, just wanted everyone to reflect on what we thought might be the most helpful of the new additions. Highlighting the July release, Adaptive's going to be doing a mini release next month in July. And this mini release actually has a lot of good things in it. The first is they're going to be introducing dimension attributes, which allows us to set up relationships within dimensions. The next is that there's going to be a searchable ability on the standard sheet. So we can go into a standard sheet and easily find an account, level, dimension, value, etc. There'll be a search function. And then the third item coming into the mini release in July is a multi-instance single refresh. So right now, if you have multiple instances, you need to go to each level to update those. Now you'll be able to simply say, I want to refresh, and I want to refresh all of these levels, and then have it run those refreshes batched together. So just recapping what we've covered, we've talked about Adaptive's new release, bringing in the navigation shortcuts. I highlighted the ones I thought would be the best to learn first. We talked about the GL Cube accounts, which are going to allow us to more easily dimensionalize actuals with some pros and cons. Talked about the new configurable scorecard, mapping those NetSuite exchange rates, and some things coming in that July mini release. So with that, we'd like to open it up and see if there's questions that you have. And if so, to go ahead and submit those. Megan, could you highlight how those should be submitted?
Definitely, yeah. If anyone is interested in submitting questions, please feel free to use the chat window at the bottom of your GoToWebinar console. You just go ahead and type them in, submit them, and we'll be able to see them here. So if anyone hasn't gotten in their questions so far and you'd still like to add a few, we definitely would welcome that. We do have a few already. So Amy, you said you can copy and paste data within Adaptive, but the question is, I thought we could only cut and paste from Excel. Can you elaborate a little bit on that one?
Sure. I think most commonly when people are cutting and pasting data, they're bringing it out of Excel, maybe their existing spreadsheets or models, and putting it into Adaptive. But we are actually able to select cells in Adaptive or groups of cells in Adaptive and copy and paste it from one area of Adaptive to another. And again, from what I highlighted, where it's going to be much easier now to select all the data in a sheet, it'll be much easier now to basically copy an entire level's worth of data for a sheet and put it into another level.
Thank you. We do have another one from our audience who writes, I have data cube sheets and use formulas to bring them into the GL. What is the advantage of the cube GL accounts?
The Cube GL accounts save you from having to put that formula in place. They'll just automatically be linked in. And really the big win is the transactions. If you're loading transactions with the Cube, you'll be able to look at that data in the GL, in the income statement sheet, and click on it and actually drill into the data. Whereas right now, if it's Cube data, we're not able to drill on it.
Great. Thank you, Amy. And we do have actually just one more question so far. When is the July update actually coming out?
It's scheduled to be coming out in late July. I don't think Adaptive's given a solid date on that one yet.
Thank you. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that update when it does come out. So that is actually all of the questions that we have for today's Q&A so far. Of course, if anyone is interested in contacting Amy about any of the webinar content that we covered, or if there are additional questions after the webinar, Amy's contact information is up on the screen there. And we will definitely be sending out both the webinar slides and also an on-demand recording of the webinar within a couple days here. So keep an eye out for that if you'd like to review anything that we covered today, or of course if you would like to share with any colleagues who weren't able to make it live. And Amy, I wanted to thank you so much for being our featured speaker today. And of course, thank you to all of our audience members who joined us. As you exit, there is a quick survey. Definitely please take a moment to let us know your thoughts on today's webinar so we can make sure that we keep putting up some interesting content for you. Thank you to everyone for your time and have a wonderful day.